So I'm going to record this one, whether it sees the light of day or not, we'll see. So how about while I grab my headphones, we can start with Felicity. And if you'd like to say a couple of words, Felicity, and to address sort of what Michael was asking about, the who, what, where, when, why of you and your journey. I'll be back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Hi everybody. So as a coach, I am very new. I trained in a traditional coaching framework, and sort of I had some, I work with a few clients as a coach. I'm also a therapist, and I have done more work as a therapist. And I would love to do a little bit more of coaching, but I feel that I'm very new. And I think sort of Andrea, what you said is very interesting to me, because the sort of kind of more traditional or more intuitive or coaching with a background. I'm not trained in the 3 principles. I haven't done any training, but I have learned as much as I can learn without going into a very expensive coaching course. So yeah, I'm interested in that because obviously the 3 principles is something that informs a lot of the work that I do as a therapist, and I think as a coach it would be as well. But it would be interesting to explore that a little bit more.
Andrea, I'm just going to go across my screen real quick, so the order.
I'll be really short and sweet. I sometimes don't like these because we don't want to rank anyone. We just are where we are. But I am trained I've received a little training, none of it too expensive. I had to laugh at that, some of it is. Anyways, in 3 principles, been around the understanding since 1995. And have also received some more formal training in coaching certifications and stuff like that. Currently have some of my own clients and a lot of my own clients. Anyway, got busy and work for a nonprofit. That's why I like you saying for 5 years.
Oh, cool.
And I've learned a lot, and hopefully I've helped a little bit and been of service. But yeah, so and I love these calls. I've been coming, I think, since for a little over a year.
Nice. Hans, how about you?
Yeah, I did some 3P coach training, whatever that is, some years ago, 2018, I think. And then I looked more into ICF and did ICF training and got certified last year, and doing some coaching, but I make my money as a consultant, so it's sort of a hobby of mine to do coaching, but it's fun and rewarding. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Nice, Hans. Thanks. Michael.
Yeah, I have spent stupid amounts of money on coach training. And as a result, I do have a certification in relationship and systems coaching, as well as ICF. And I just recently completed NLP coach training. And my girlfriend was actually saying, maybe it's about time you stop spending money on training and actually go out and do it. And I think she has a good point. So I do have some clients, some one-on-one clients. My preference is to do team coaching. So I'm actively searching out some teams that I can sign on as clients. And been doing this for a couple of years and really enjoy it. And I've taken the leap that this is my work, this is my job, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm going to support myself.
Out of the closet with it, eh, Mike?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mr. Mark.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Harris. I live in London, UK. I'm a coach as well. Stumbled upon it by accident, didn't know it was something that I was doing. And there is a kind of like some sort of method to it in a sense. But what I'm trying to do is to bring more realism and more natural nature to it as opposed to structure. So that's where I'm at. I want to just be real with it as opposed to the book says, you know, if they ask this question, say this answer or ask this question, because it doesn't work. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. Just basically just bringing humanness, beingness to the coaching world.
Nice. Arvin, good to see you.
Hey, Michael.
How are you, sir?
Good, good. How about you, Ars?
I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Yeah, so I always been very interested in coaching part of it, but I never pursued it or like taken any courses for coaching. For actually coaching. I have taken a few courses in 3 Principle, and always you know, intrigued. When I talk to people, I always surprise people. What I can tell them that actually them understanding a little bit better of themselves. So I'm here just curious, you know, what's available, you know, just to see what's going on.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Arvin.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah.
Razmik. Oh, excuse me. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you all. So
Yeah.
I'm joining from Armenia, if you guys know where it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, I stumbled across the 3 Principles quite accidentally as well. I was a hardcore meditator before I even heard about it.
Hardcore
And then boom,
meditator.
it was just an immediate change. And you know, my first reaction is like, oh my God, I have to share it with everyone. Until I figured out, well, it doesn't exactly work that way. So it was about 5 years ago. But then a couple of years afterwards, I think I made a deliberate decision to kind of stay a student of the 3 Principles, and it has helped a lot. So now I'm kind of transitioning back into gently sharing it. I work with transitional initiatives and reforms, so trying to integrate whatever I've understood from the 3Ps. And I've taken a couple of 3P courses, but not so much on coaching. So when a conversation unfolds, I'm very comfortable pointing people to what I've seen, but I'm yet to kind of have the kind of presence or to set a structure of coaching that will systematically benefit. And I'm here to learn that from you guys.
Well, no problem.
Nobody knows, I know.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyone have an answer for that? We'll see what we can do, Razmik.
Yeah.
See. Thank you. Elsa, are you with us? Oh.
Sorry, yes, trying to unmute my phone. Hi, my name is Elsa, and I'm in Canada, and I'm new to coaching. I just got my certification last year. I don't have any training with the 3 Principles. I like it. But I haven't had any formal training, and I'm just very excited. I love these calls because there's something always that I can take away from everyone. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Elsa. I'm glad you made it.
Thank you.
I'm Michael. Some of us have met. Some of us have even met in person. Yeah, a couple of you guys there. So I've been coaching unofficially for a long time. If I count sort of my gym years where I was acting as more of a trainer, but that often gets called coach or gets called coaching. I started on we'll call it a peer coaching or education around coaching about, I don't know, I guess when I met Dominic, so that's 3 or 4 years ago now, let's say. And I also was just certified through the ICF. And I have done well, that's not true. I've done some 3P coursework with people like Jack Pransky, you know, way back in 2015. And my journey in coaching, which I've also seen now as my vocation, it's what I have to be doing, is all about marrying formal coaching with, we'll call it with 3 Principles or with a spiritual grounding, and how to try to bring those two things together. My training in coaching is all in solution focused coaching, and it is all with a woman named Hey Sun Moon. And if you haven't done work with Hey Sun Moon, start now, because she is that good. and I know some of you would not, well, at least one of you would nod in agreement. Yeah, right, Hans, would you agree? Yeah. She's that good. She is that good. So I'm just going to throw out one of the questions that I had for the group, because I think it'll fit. And if we want to, we could maybe even take this into a 2 people breakout rooms to practice this. It's quite entertaining. My question is, what are we listening for when we're coaching? What are we actually doing when we are in a coaching conversation? What are we listening for? And feel free to unmute yourself. I mean, we've got a manageable group here. So what are we listening for when we're coaching? Or for that matter, we'll broaden it a little bit and say, what are we listening for in a conversation? Yeah, just start talking. What are we listening for?
Feeling. The feeling.
We're listening for a feeling. Okay.
Yes. So that could be through the sound, through the body, through the voice. That's what I'm listening for. And I'm trying to hear what the feeling is, as opposed to the words that's coming from the mouth.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, cool, Mark. We'll start with that. What other thoughts do we have? What are we listening for?
I think.
Felicity started first. Go ahead, Felicity.
I think maybe what is that? What does the person want? What is the client? What is that is looking for? And where perhaps where they are, kind of trying to listen for that through whatever they're talking about, I think.
So Felicity says what they want and sort of where they are. Cool. So we'll circle back to all of these in a sec. Hans, what were you gonna?
Yeah, the same, and also something about connection and building trust. And there's different ways to listen for that, but that's sort of the starting point with a new client. If you don't have a relationship beforehand, you have to make them feel secure and to have that connection, so they're comfortable with sharing with whatever they want.
That's interesting that you bring up the connection or the grounding, whatever terminology we want to use. That Jamie Smart refers to it as calibration. I'm sure other modalities do as well, which even opens the topic up more, as in what might an order be within a coaching conversation, if there is such a thing, which is cool. Any other thoughts on what it is we're listening for? Yeah, Razmik, please.
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been just said. I just want to say I love the model that Aaron Turner uses a lot. I know that especially when they work around organizations and stuff, basically they put ahead of a student of 3 principles. They're looking for misunderstandings that their clients might have that would be helpful to point them towards in a compassionate way. I think that's a helpful way to think about it as well.
So that's interesting. They're looking for misunderstandings.
Well, especially those that, if a client would have an insight on, would lead to some change. I think especially when it comes to organizations.
It's interesting. What else?
I kind of like what you said there, Razmik. And to me, the first word that came to my mind was congruence, right? And maybe that feels to me like an all-encompassing word for everything that you're doing as a coach. Like at the very beginning, when you're meeting somebody brand new, You're listening for congruence between you and them. Can you get congruent with your client, right? When you're already working with them for a couple months and they come to you with a brand new problem, you're listening for congruency between what they come to you today versus all the work that you've done in the past, right? When they're explaining their problem to you, you're listening for congruency in what they say. Like, are they actually internally conflicted? Or do they accidentally say something that belies, you know, a contradiction in their thinking, right? So that you can point it out. So yeah, if congruence feels pretty all-encompassing for me when we talk about, you know, our presence with the client.
Nice, thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts?
I was gonna toss in, like in any conversation, not just about a client. I really liked being reminded of looking for an opportunity to build rapport. A number of people said the same thing, but with different words. But I really needed to hear that and say that, you know, that's because that's also like showing up and being of service. That's the first word that came to my mind. Is there an opportunity here to be of service? And I think I'm always in some service to the moment in the conversation if I look for an opportunity to be of service. The other thing, or build rapport, the other thing that came to mind too is some funny story I heard about. I don't want to look too hard for anything because then I'm going to ignore other stuff too. There's some funny story about like a therapist being convinced that fish are always at the root of every problem. So they listen for anything that they can find so they can bring the conversation back to a fish. Anything to do with water, puddles, or whatever. It's a funny little thing that a 3P thing has. So I don't want to look too hard, but I also resonate with looking for, now that doesn't quite make sense. Like, can we, like, or something like an incongruence, and to see that's causing someone a disturbance, and if I can be of service there. And it seems that that's how it shows up, is something that doesn't really match up. So those are
Nice. So what is, if we sort of riff on that, what is, so we're listening for congruence, we're listening for what the client wants, we're listening for an opportunity to be of service. How do we what are we listening for that enables us to be of service, I guess, is sort of the question that comes to mind for me. Hans.
Yeah, something that I noticed that has been impactful in my coaching is not giving advice, but stating suggestive questions. And can it be like this or this? And because I'm not an expert in their lives, but on the other hand, I know a few things about a few things. So if I'm able to suggest something and really listen, is it resonating or not, and so and that's something that's getting better and better, and I can see it provides a great value for my clients to show something about what I know, but state it like a question, and listen and to see how it lands, because that wasn't something that I did before. Then I sort of knew I had the answer. But
there's quite a distinction between being on your agenda and being on the client's agenda, isn't there? Sounds like. Do you guys want to try a quick exercise around this, around what we're listening for?
Yeah.
We game for it? I mean, there's 8, so I will not be playing along, but everyone else can. So hopefully we can pull this off in the breakout room. So what are, oops, hold on a sec. What are we listening? Oh, look at this. Create, there's 8, so we're creating 4 breakout rooms. Haha, I'm going to get good at this. So this is an exercise that we did that I did in one of my coach trainings, and it's called the complaining exercise. And I don't know if any of you have done this or not. So, okay, we're all game for this. All right, cool. All right, too late now. We're committed. So this is called the complaining exercise, and you're going to work in pairs. And the only instructions you're going to get are that you are going to complain for 2 minutes about something, and the other person is not going to say a damn word. And then you're going to switch. Okay, so we'll say we'll have like roughly, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes in each breakout room. 2 minutes. So pick a topic, pick something. You're going to complain about it for 2 minutes. Then you're going to switch and you're going to complain about it for 2 minutes. And then we're going to come back and see what's come up. We good with that? Okay, so you'll be automatically assigned, and there we go. Okay, this will be cool. And the rooms are open now.
Okay.
And I don't know how to set a time yet. I'm not that good, but we'll go in 2. Oh, are you alone, Arvin? Hold on a sec, Arvin. You're muted. I can't hear you, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think
And now you're gone. Okay, are we good? All right, so 2 minutes. How was that?
Good.
Interesting?
Yeah, it's a long time. 2
It's
minutes.
a really long time, isn't it? It's a really long time.
Yeah.
We did that for the first time with my first training with Hasan, and did it exactly the same way that you just did, which was just, okay, go and complain for 2 minutes, no further instructions. So how did everyone find that exercise? Was it hard to complain for 2 minutes, or was it easy to complain for 2 minutes?
Hard.
Mike's going hard.
Hard.
Yeah. Hard to complain for 2 minutes.
No, I could have complained for half an hour.
What are you guys talking about? We complained all the way.
So what do you think, before I give it away, what do you think the purpose of that exercise might be? What did you take away from the exercise? What do you think it was about? How does it, or does it relate to the question about listening? Yeah, don't put your, just speak. Razmik.
Probably when you're hearing someone talk or complain, and part of you knows that they're in their thinking, you hear it, you listen, you hear them, but at the same time, there's another feeling. When you're complaining, the feeling is a bit different. It's like, I like the metaphor of fish doesn't see the water because it's surrounded by it the whole time. That was the feeling, I suppose.
Cool. Who else?
Yeah,
I
it
think
It's
becomes.
hard. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's easy to know what the people really cares about, to listen beyond the complaining and see what is really important in this person's life, and then you starting to hearing something different. It's not complaining. It's to see something that is really important to that person.
Nice. Yeah. Did anyone else have that sense as well?
No.
And if you didn't,
Thank you.
that's
That was
okay. That's
helpful.
okay too.
That's really cool. That's good.
So any other thoughts on that one before I spill the beans?
I think also perhaps to see what is behind, what is the flip side of that that people complain about.
Mm-hmm.
What is that really? What is that they want? What is that not saying? Because when you complain about something, that means that you want something else.
Yeah, nice. Any other thoughts there?
It was hard for me to just not say anything for 2 minutes.
Challenging,
Very hard.
challenging, isn't it?
Very hard. And I had to ask a question because and I was like, oh my God, what? I was like, yeah, that's a hard part, and saying, like, just letting the other person speak and give them their space without me giving anything back, you know.
It certainly illustrates, so from my experience with it, it illustrates a couple of things. And to speak to what Elsa was just talking about is it's really difficult to keep your mouth shut for 2 minutes while someone is complaining and every instinct is screaming for you to help them, which is really interesting, because that's instinctive, and that's not what coaching is, in my opinion, is what I've come to see. So that was a really challenging thing, to just keep my mouth shut and not let the desire to help overcome, yeah, exactly, in air quotes, my desire to help. Yeah, thank you, Mike. And the other thing is, and I think Hans, I think we probably all got a sense of it now, when people are complaining, they are telling you what's important to them. Right? So to come back sort of full circle to the original question about what are we listening for in a coaching conversation? And I'm not claiming expertise in this, I should have said that from the outset, but what I've come to see that we're listening for is what's important to the person we're listening to. Period. And it's out of listening to what's important to people that we can start to formulate questions, and that we can start to play back certain aspects of what they're telling us. So we as coaches can point at certain things that we curate from them. And, what's important to the person. So if you think back to the conversation that you had, I don't remember who was in which group anymore, but is there, and only if we feel comfortable with this, is there something that someone said that, in a bit of reflection now, obviously points to what they care about, or obviously pointed to what they cared about?
I mean, also something, I think with Hans, I think...
And Hans, are you okay with this?
Are you okay with it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think what he said pointed to was how much he cared about fulfilling his role, or do his work well. I think he cared about the work that he does, and there is, at the moment, there is some incongruence there, because things are not going the way that he would like to, but obviously there is that care about that, about providing what is needed. I don't know, is that right, or maybe
is that close, Hans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would anyone else feel comfortable sharing a little bit of their conversation? And it's like, listen, we have to be clear that we're all in agreement with doing this, because if I do post it, we have to respect privacy. But if we can illustrate a little bit what we heard, that would be cool. So if anyone else feels brave, Michael, please.
Your original question, it was, did what I was listening to point to an obvious, topic that they cared about? And I was listening to Andrea. I would say maybe not obvious, but it did make me very curious. Like I had to sit there and stay quiet, because that was the assignment. And I found that easy to do. But I was already thinking, like, okay, ask about that. Oh, ask about that. Oh, that's interesting. Let's explore that, right? So it certainly made me more curious and want to explore a little bit more about, why are you complaining about this, and what's important to you about that?
Cool. Andrea, do you have thoughts there?
Well, yeah, but also going the other way. So, so Michael, like in a nutshell, what I heard from Michael was a complaint about a long to-do list and not enough time, a never-ending to-do list and not enough time. And I've had that one too. So it was, and it's important for me, this is what comes to my mind, because I had a huge insight about that. I was having a real battle with that about 7 years ago, and a really significant insight. Not that I'd never have that struggle at all, but it really shifted. Anyway, I don't want to put my insight onto him. There is like that I had a jump in consciousness around a battle with to-do lists and time. Yeah, it's important to, like when you, Michael, just commented about staying curious, which means this to me, you know, having an open mind, listening to hear more. And my mind gets too closed if I'm convinced I'm reaching into my insight and then trying to map something on someone else's, which feels like, oh, I got a solution because this was a huge insight. Let me, you know, and I know I didn't have that temptation because we only spent 4 minutes together, but in other conversations, I've had to be careful about that.
Nice, nice. What else got noticed? So I'll say a few words then while we fill a little bit of time. But what I find really interesting about that exercise is that the clarity that someone has around what it is that they don't want is, you know, a coin flip away from having clarity around what they do want. And it's our job as coaches to mine for what it is that they do want, right? To resist the urge to get caught up in, to resist the urge to get caught up in tell me more about the problem, or get curious around the problem. What I'm starting to see is that the problem, whatever problem the person is experiencing or the challenge that they're complaining about, is really almost irrelevant, because what it does give us is the opportunity to say, okay, great. Now, how do you, or what, I mean, I'm not nuancing this well, but, you know, we can point from that to the resourcefulness. So the clarity around which they know what they do not want also points people to what it is that they do want. And oftentimes what I'm noticing is that that's where coaching can be really, really helpful, is getting people, and not getting people, but to assist in getting people clear on what they don't want is actually telling them. Right? So the more certain they are around what they do not want, it seems to me that they're within that is hidden also what they do want. And for us to uncover that, to mind that, is sort of where that's pointed me. I wanted to, if it's okay, Mike, I wanted to ask you about curiosity, and I'll, you know, to everyone. When we're in a coaching conversation, whose curiosity matters?
I think it's equal, frankly, because I think your curiosity as a coach helps to open up the client's curiosity, because they come in with a particular problem or a stuck point, and so by definition they're stuck. Right? But if we fully believe, I'm not familiar with the 3 principles, but, you know, if we fully believe that people don't need a coach, right, that they are inherently, you know, intelligent, resourceful, and whole, and they have all the answers inside of them, but they're coming to a coach in order to help them find that within themselves, then your curiosity as a leader to help them find their own internal curiosity to eventually come up to their own resolution.
Cool. No, thanks, Mike. I was just curious. I am. Any other thoughts on curiosity?
And is curiosity the same thing as clarification, or is there something else? What do you do? Like if you don't really, I mean, to sort of to clarify that you actually understand what, you know, all the points or whatever, you know, the conversation is, or what is the curiosity about? What is curiosity or clarification? That is.
I think I would distinguish between the two personally.
Right.
Felicity, and for me, what curiosity has come to mean for me, and again, not right or wrong, just sort of where I see it is the curiosity that I bring to a coaching conversation is on the client's behalf. It's not really my curiosity, because if I'm coming from my curiosity, and again, this is just where I'm at on my journey right now. When I'm coming from my curiosity, it seems like it's on my agenda. I'm curious to know about this. And maybe this is just splitting hairs that don't need to be split, Mike, or semantics that don't need to be semanticated. But there's
That's a new
something,
word.
yeah, it's making them up as I go along. There's something different to me around me being curious and being curious on behalf of the client. That's something that I'm sort of playing around with and working with right now. It feels to me, Mark, to come back to feeling, it feels different to me. When I get caught up in curiosity, more often than not, what I'm noticing is that it is around helping, or it is around the problem. And when I'm being curious on the client's behalf, it feels different. It feels a little bit differently directed. You know, so the feeling that I experience when I'm asking for my curiosity, well, I'm just curious, tell me more about this, versus, so what do you see there? So on behalf of, there seems to be a distinction there. And if anyone has anything to add or subtract to that, please do, because, well, I sure as shit don't have it figured out yet. So, but there seems to be some distinguishing between mine and theirs, like my curiosity and on behalf of theirs.
To me, that sounds like, you know, are you really truly being present with the client, and are you really truly being there in service of them, right?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it, Michael. Yeah.
Right. Because what you were describing there, I like, because it reminds me of the 3 levels of listening. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but, you know, level 1 is supposedly listening to respond. Level
Right.
2 is, you know, listening for awareness, right? Or listening for understanding. And yeah, if you're asking out of, and it just comes down to self-awareness, right? You know, how are you showing up? How are you being present? Are you about you, or are you about them? And if you just, every single thing you do in a coaching conversation, if you just ask yourself, am I doing this in service of them, or am I doing that in service of me? And that's a great tell, right? To help guide yourself.
Mm-hmm. I like that, Michael. Yeah. I mean, I'd hate to have to ask myself that question every time. My coaching conversations would be like an hour and 20 minutes long. It's like, hold on.
You get better at it.
Well, it's an ongoing process, of course, right? So I think if it's okay, I'm going to actually pose the other question that I had, because it feels like we've brushed up against it a little bit, and that is neutrality possible and or desirable in a coaching conversation? Is there such a thing as being neutral?
No, it isn't. Impossible.
Anyone else? That was very clear, Hans. And yeah.
This is never about perfection, right? Being perfectly neutral. That's never what it's about. But for me to aim to lean in that direction, that's how I put it. I want to lean in the direction of trying to be neutral and not bring my own baggage and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I do think it can be helpful, because it does link to having an open mind, which I think is about being curious. Like the curiosity that can exist in the conversation between all of us, both of us, or all of us, is more kind of pure when there's a respect for neutrality, as opposed to always going into our own memory or our own stuff. It's enhanced. It's more powerful. Yeah, but it's different than denial. I mean, I think neutrality can end up being pretending or something.
Interesting.
Pretending that there's nothing there.
What else? What does everyone else think? Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. I mean, Hans was very succinct in his answer.
I think neutrality, I think that it's important to have a level of neutrality, but that doesn't mean that you are not part of the relationship. That you can be in the relationship. you have to be in the relationship, and you are exchanging, you are in a conversation, you are involved in everything that is going on. But I think the neutrality comes, I think it might be important when it comes to content, for example, that you're able to sort of step back from that and sort of, I don't know, because I think if you are in a state of non-neutrality, when you get to content, you can get very involved into that. And then you can lose a lot of important things in the conversation.
So it sounds like what you're describing is sort of that the opposite of neutrality might be being on your agenda, or being overly content focused, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the neutrality comes to sort of see that that is not your agenda, that is not your issue, that is not, that is not yours, it's not personal, anything. That is quite impersonal in that sense.
What else, folks? What else do you think around that?
Also important thing in terms of neutrality about what? If it's a question that you feel like a client is somehow struggling with, or let's say they have to make a decision, that's what the coaching is around, then it's very important to be neutral around that. If you, let's say, you want them to come at an insight, but you're not going to formulate it, so in that sense you're neutral. But on more trivial examples, it might be helpful not to be fully neutral, because it might create some sort of a rapport. So I don't know if that made sense. So neutral
Sure.
about what? Yeah.
Interesting.
I think there's a rather interesting irony here, that the word neutral itself is not neutral, that there are nuances to it, right? There are interpretations to it. So I just find that really, really freaking ironic. And I'll throw this in here. It's not really about coaching, but one of the other things that I've done recently, past year, was I took mediation training, conflict resolution. And in that training, the first training they teach you as a mediator, you are there to be the neutral third party, right? You have party one that's in a dispute with party two, mediator comes in the middle, you are a neutral third party to help navigate the conversation and mediate a potential agreement between these two parties and hopefully resolve the conflict. Okay, and then in later mediation training that I took, the teacher challenged us as students, and she's like, do you guys really think you can be neutral? Like, no, seriously, do you really think you can be completely 100% neutral, right? You're human, you have feelings, you have biases, right? You have your own experiences, you have your own lived experiences. If you are a mediator with a Native American background, right, or Aboriginal background, and one of the parties of the disputant, one of the disputant parties comes from a Native American background, you're going to be biased. you can't be 100% neutral. And so she challenged us by saying, I don't think you can be truly neutral as a mediator, but you can be equally compassionate. You can show the same level of compassion to both parties. Even if you are Native and the other part is Native and the other part is not Native, you can still show basic human decency and human compassion to both parties as a means of your mediation. So this whole discussion around neutrality brought that up for me.
Nice.
I'll kind of leave that there for you all to ponder.
Oh, thank you very much. So we have about 3 minutes left, and I want to, for now, keep this one to right around an hour. And I'd like to circle back to Hans and ask Hans if you could elaborate a little bit more on your very succinct answer
Yeah.
originally about neutrality.
Yeah, there's a lot. I agree with the thing that Michael said, that it isn't possible.
Mhm.
I'm gonna involuntarily listen for certain things and respond without me knowing that I'm picking a side. And I don't think the client wants neutral either, because then they would just go to a chatbot or something online, and they want a person there. And then there's levels of neutrality and how you do it. But yeah, I'm gonna show up as a person, and I'm gonna do my best to stick to the client's agenda, but
Yeah.
but I'm gonna be me, and I cannot avoid it.
That feels very accurate to me, Hans, and you know what Michael was saying as well. What's been helpful for me around neutrality has been acknowledging that it's impossible. You can't be neutral in a coaching conversation for all of the reasons that we've talked about, and it's in understanding that you can't be neutral that you can be as neutral as possible. Right. So if I know that everything I do, including nodding or raising my eyebrows or shrugging or leaning in, that all of that is fed to the client on some level or another. So there's no such thing as neutrality. And so for me, what's been helpful is understanding that everything that I do in a coaching conversation has an implication on the coaching conversation. So the more I can get comfortable with realizing that, what I'm noticing is that the lighter my touch gets. So I'll does that resonate for anyone? You can say no, yes, no, you know, whatever. Okay, thumbs up. And that's sort of straight from you know, from the mouth of Hey Sun, that you know, there's a whole exploration about what does how does she say it? What does what a coach does do? So everything that you do in a coaching conversation has an impact, and the client is going to react to that. So how do we minimize the influence that we have, knowing that we cannot eliminate it? You know, this has been really cool, and that hour flew by. I hope some of this was helpful to someone. You know, are there, if you know, if we have my honey leaves for work in about 10 minutes. Is there something else that we could touch on in a hard 10-minute timeline, or any thoughts or anything anyone would like to share? Any brilliant insights from the hour we spent together?
No, I just
Small
like
insights?
I mean, I like the last point that you make about neutrality, because I thought, no, neutrality is quite important. You have to be and you have to be neutral. But I know, I understand what you're saying, that even whether you like or you want it or you don't want it, that everything, you know, there is an exchange of energy and an exchange of everything that is going on. But I trained as a sort of person-centered as therapist, and there is this thing about being the companion of in the journey.
Mm.
So, you know, you are in the other person's realm or whatever, in the other person's reality, and you are there. I mean, it doesn't apply to coaching, but you know, to the same extent. I suppose there's some things that you might, but you know, that you are there as kind of being a companion. So you don't bring your own agenda. Yeah, I think that's understood. But it's interesting what you just said at the end. So I will.
Well, and again, you know, right or wrong, My hope is that my opinion on that will be completely different 2 years from now, or at the very least more nuanced than it is now. So, I mean, we're all speaking from our best selves, our best experiences in the moment. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Mark.
Yeah,
Yes, the person on the far right in the middle-ish. Middle right.
yeah, I was just thinking about what you're saying about neutrality and all that lot. And so how I see it is like, people do things just naturally. So sometimes somebody's talking and you agree with them, you naturally just like, yeah, you know what, I feel that it makes sense. But when we're thinking about neutrality, then when I'm doing that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm nodding my head. So I think neutrality comes in from just being natural as opposed to forcing.
Yeah.
Because I kind of get up, if I'm trying to ask, if I want to ask somebody something, I'm going to get caught up in what I'm thinking that I want to ask them. But if the conversation is just flowing and I say, oh, so what do you think about this? Or would you take that to mean to yourself? That's natural. So that's where it comes from for me. That's what I saw it as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. Absolutely. You know, just before we run out of time, I want to throw this out, and this is sort of to the 3P community, so the people that get what the 3Ps are. And Mike, we can talk about this sometime, if you want. So I know that at least one of you is familiar with the DOQ, the dialogic orientation quadrant, which is, you're familiar with that as well? Nice. So the DOQ is a way that we can map a coaching conversation after the fact. It is not a tool to use during coaching. It's a way to explore the direction that your client takes and how the client responds to the questions that you ask or the utterances that you make. So this is pretty fresh for me. So what I've noticed is that pointing to quadrant 2, which is a person's resourceful past, is pointing them at their grounding without talking about grounding in sort of the spiritual way that we might talk about it in the 3P community. So you can have a coaching conversation that has nothing to do, Richard, right on time. You can have a coaching conversation and point someone to their grounding without teaching them or telling them anything, but merely by paying attention to their quadrant 2, their resourceful past. That has struck me in the last few days that, you know, Q2, resourceful past, is pointing someone at their grounding. And the beauty of it is they're telling you what it is, right? So I'm facing this challenge today. Okay, great. Tell me about a time in the last couple of weeks where you faced a challenge that was similar to this one. You know, I mean, that's a poorly formulated question, but for the expediency of time here, well, what are they going to tell you about? They're going to tell you about a time when they were grounded. And I find that really cool. That is like, that's been percolating just for a couple of days now. But you know, how simple it is to take practical lived examples from the person without ever having to get into the language of 3P or consciousness or any of that. And just, okay, tell me about your past successes, basically. Wow. Well, what was happening in that time that enabled you to do that? So basically tell me about your grounding when you were successful in your past with that challenge. What might you bring from that time? I mean, it's all about grounding. Now, again, that is fresh for me the last couple of days. So Richard, right on time to close off here, man. Good job, dude. I'm so glad you made it. So welcome, Richard. I should have posted something about the time switch, but I thought, you know, we'll see who gets caught.
Yeah.
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 So on that note, let's wrap it up, folks. So for the 3P guys and girls in the group, that idea of using resourceful past as a way to point towards grounding, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. If that percolates something for you, or if something percolates in time, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because as I said, that is new for me to sort of see how we can bring, you know, pure coaching and the 3 principles together. And that struck me as being like the most obvious way to do that. Right. So instead of teaching grounding and saying you need more grounding, you can pull from their experience, their grounding, and make it live and real for them without having to get into a pointing, teaching kind of conversation. So I'd love,
Michael, I agree with that. And it's something that I do actually as a way of grounding. And when we are there, you can go a little bit further if you want to explore, you know, the state of mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and kind of, so they can say, oh, so when I was there, this was my state of mind. And how is that, how, you know, how that was useful.
Yeah, absolutely, Felicity. Yeah.
Can I jump in? Sorry.
2 minutes, Richard, go. The last guy in the room, last voice. All right, go for it, Richard.
Voice. What I'm hearing here is let's not try and get too mixed up on both of them. That's what I'm getting, and really just be with that client. It's all about the person you're speaking to, who's opposite you, and not to think, is it going to be in 3P? Is it in this other way? Is it this way? No, it's just whatever's going to be true to you, you come up with it, and that's what I'm seeing here. And I like how that grounding is it's very important. But if you're grounded in knowing that, you'll find the way to bring it in. That's
this might be an interesting next topic. You said something about you know, your wisdom, bringing it out. That's something that I've been toying with a little bit, because my wisdom isn't the other person's wisdom, and I'd rather rely on their wisdom than my wisdom, or what I think is my wisdom. But that might be a perfect spot to put a pause there. And well done, Richard. Way to bring value in the last 4 minutes, man. Good job. Glad you made it.
It's laser sharp. It's laser sharp. I hope this is recorded. Good, because this is laser sharp.
Say it again, Richard. Say it again.
Laser sharp. Let's go for it.
That gets a bingo bango.
Look, I got my bingo bango Father Christmas cup as well.
So just as we go, so thank you all. I'm always grateful that people actually show up and spend some time with us. So very, very cool. And just before we go, I'm going to try and read Swedish, which I can't do, but something about Karo Parisian, who I recognize as a fighter. I think so. Do you know someone? And Karo,
yeah, never mind that.
All right. All right, so I will if we're okay with this being posted to the group, you know, now is the time for nodding or not, because we did share a little bit perhaps of personal information while we you know, deconstructed the complaining exercise. So are we all okay with it being posted? Yeah. Okay, good stuff. All right, love you all. We'll do this again in about 4 weeks, I guess, and keep an eye on the page on the Roundtable group, because there is something coming. There's a surprise coming for everyone. So again, much love. Thank you all for joining in. I'll have the conversation up soon, and enjoy the rest of the day, man.
Awesome. Nice to meet everyone.
All right. See you, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good rest of the day.
Bye.